This video is brought to you by Patreon. By signing up on the Phat Pack Magic Patreon, you get early access to all content, as well as grab bags of valuable cards and amazing mats exclusive to patrons. You can help keep coverage for Paper Magic alive by showing your support on the Phat Pack Magic Patreon today. Hello everyone and welcome back to Phat Pack Magic. We're here at Darkside Games for their Pioneer 1K event, sponsored by my friend, a great guy, Mike Chimmel, who's at cvvegas.com. So if you're looking to buy property out here in Las Vegas, check out cvvegas.com. And he's an awesome dude. He gives me great realty advice. And he's playing in the event as well, playing for his own money. So we're here with Danny Mercado on the right, and he's playing blue-white control. And he's up against Rob Pisano, who broke my heart, no longer playing Niv Delight, and instead he's going with Sultai Delirium. Both players starting with the tap, land, and pass. And it looks like Danny's on another tap, land, and pass. How exciting for turn 1 and turn 2. But it looks like Rob's got a great start going. It's Jace Vryn's Prodigy, an amazing card for the Delirium deck, being able to fill the graveyard, get a little bit of card advantage by pitching stuff like Uro or what have you, or it would have been a great card advantage, except that Teferi is going to bounce it to Rob's hand and draw Danny a card. And that is a great way to start off for blue-white control. It prevents Rob from making instant speed, gives him a target that he has to deal with, and unfortunately, he's going to be kind of in the backseat here until he can get that Teferi off the board. He's got to play out that Jace one more time, and unfortunately, he's not able to start looting. I mean, if he had a Thoughtseize, it would be a much better plan, but right now, Danny's just able to kind of pump up that Teferi, hold back on defense, and able to pass the turn without worrying too much. And Rob untaps here. And one thing I really do like about the Sultai Delirium deck is how resilient it can be. Getting in there with Uro is really strong. And it's proven to be one of the top tier contenders of the format. And Rob discarding Uro, and it looks like he's got a Brain Maggot in hand. He's going to pay 2 life to put a Breeding Pool into play tapped. Is he going to go? Well, he can't go on Uro plan right now. And he can't really do any counter magic either, because Teferi stops everything that Rob is doing. Rob is basically on Hearthstone at the moment. Danny pulling out a nice little boogie board to keep track of life totals. But here comes a Brain Maggot. And that might be a good counter target. I'm not 100% sure on that because, I mean, Danny can kind of deal with it. He's got Supreme Verdict, but an Abrupt Decay is going to be his follow-up, killing off that Teferi and passing the turn back to Danny. But Big Papa Teferi comes down as a great turn 5. I guess that's worth protecting from a Brain Maggot. Drawing a card and untapping 2 lands seems pretty good, especially when he's threatening counter magic. But now Rob Pisano is off Teferi, small Teferi, and that means that he might start being, here we go. Here's an Uro. That's going to gain Rob 3 life, draw him a card, and allow him to ramp a little bit. Now, I really hate seeing this card in Standard sometimes, because I play blue-white control in Standard, and it is so tough to deal with. Basically, I'm just trying to be like, all right, I got to outlive multiple Uros, and when I see that come down, I usually just play Narset the next turn if I've got it available. So Jace flips on the activation, and Rob is going to traverse the Ulvenwald, and I believe he has Delirium. Maybe? I guess not. Or he just really wanted a forest, which is also doable. He's got the Murderous Rider in hand. And here comes another Traverse the Ulvenwald. And I guess this time he's got Delirium. Question is, what is he putting in there? Kind of looks like Emrakul. The Promised End pulled to the front. He hasn't made a decision yet. Or Walking Ballista? Walking Ballista would be really cool too. If he can like put out a big fat walking ballista, he can kind of take care of that Teferi. But his selection is Murderous Rider, effectively putting Danny on notice for counter magic. He needs to have one available for that Murderous Rider. And in turn, Danny cycles away that Azorius Charm, proving how amazing it is. Being able to time walk your opponent or just draw a card at instant speed is always nice. So here comes Teferi, drawing and doing what he do. Teferi is, he's an amazing card. So Soul Guide Lantern comes in and it looks like it's going to snipe something. It looks like it's going to snipe one of the Uros. But it has the ability to sack and crack and exile all the Uros. Danny putting out an opt because he's got the free mana to use. And there's a Detention Sphere. Now it looks like he's got Supreme Verdict, Detention Sphere, and an Island in hand, and a Dig Through Time. And he might really need that Dig Through Time to find a counter spell for this Murderous Rider. And Rob has an active Jason play, so he can pull back an Abrupt Decay if completely need be. So here comes the Satyr Wayfinder. And it looks like, I feel like Danny should be really okay with that. It's just going to put more stuff in the graveyard that he'll be able to exile with that nice little Soul Guide Lantern. So there's a juicy grip of targets. And unfortunately, it looks like Rob will be able to, looks like he will be able to cast an Uro if he has an untapped land. But he doesn't. And now both of his Uros are vulnerable, and Danny is looking at that Soul Guide Lantern with greedy, hungry eyes. I mean, that's a great target right there. That would be 3 Uros out of Rob's hand. So Rob moves to combat. Soul Guide Lantern gets completely exiled. And I think now would be a good time to go for a dig. So here's 3 blue. Danny exiling the yard. He's holding up counter magic. Here's Dig Through Time. Murderous Rider is going to come down. It's going to kill off Teferi. Danny has no response. There's no counter magic in Danny's hand. And it would really suck if that's where he found it. But still, counter magic is counter magic. But he's found a Teferi, a Censor, and a Settle the Wreckage. Teferi, definitely one of the cards that you want. And it looks like he's going for Cast Out as well. So Dig Through Time resolves. Danny has got a new Teferi to play with. And there's a clutch counterspell. It's Absorb. And Rob is going to have to fight through that. Both players just confirming that the Midnight Rider is exiled, but it's exiled on an adventure rather than exiled for goodsies. Oh man, look at that Teferi. Here's Murderous Rider. Rob Pisano confidently tapping it down. But Danny's got the Absorb. That's going to gain him 3 life as well, putting him up to 26. And now Rob has little offense. And he's just checking with the judge to make sure that he can't cast the Murderous Rider from the graveyard using Jace's effect. Now, Jace is pretty close to ultimate. And his ultimate could be very relevant, milling out Danny's deck and depriving him of any win conditions. Now, unfortunately, the Murderous Rider cannot be cast from the graveyard, but he still has a Murderous Rider that he can cast, and that's the one on an adventure. Here comes 1 damage at Teferi, putting him down to 5, and keeping him locked down from gaining too many loyalty counters and getting ahead. And Rob following it up with a Courser of Kruphix, who reveals a Thoughtseize off the top. Now, Thoughtseize is incredibly strong against these kind of decks. It's a little late here, but there's a Field of Ruin. And if Danny wants to get really tricksy, he could blow up one of Rob's lands and force him to shuffle away that Thoughtseize. But he's also contemplating on whether or not he wants to blow up the field right now. Here we go. Supreme Verdict. Both cards get wiped away. Rob tucks he puts the Thoughtseize back face down. The Detention Sphere is going to hit that Jace before it can ultimate. And now, Danny is kind of inoculated against that Thoughtseize. He's used the most powerful and relevant spells that he has in hand. But Rob still needs to get ahead here. He's only got a land, a Thoughtseize, and it looks like another Courser. Danny shows off his hand. It's a Azorius Charm, it's a Cast Out, it's a Supreme Verdict. Now he might just try and grab that Cast Out because it's an instant speed removal. And Rob really hates it when blue-white control players play on his turn instead. So he's going to go for the Cast Out. And here comes the Murderous Rider. Now, unfortunately, Teferi Tuck on a Murderous Rider is not a great plan because it's going to allow the Murderous Rider to cast itself again. And having that great adventure means that Murderous Rider is basically just a 2-for-1. Oh, and there's a really sharp draw. It's Gideon of the Trials. So Danny's going to draw off of Teferi, lose 2 life to play a Hallowed Fountain into play untapped. But he's not under a lot of pressure, so having that mana available could probably be a lot more valuable. And here comes Gideon of the Trials. He's going to +1, I think. Pretty sure he's going to +1. Yep, he's +1ing, targeting the Murderous Rider, untapping 2 lanes with Teferi, and Rob is firmly in the backseat here. He needs to deal with not 1, but 2 Planeswalkers, and he needs to fight through an Absorb. And it looks like he doesn't have anything. So what Danny's going to do, and this is one of my favorite plays that you can do with this deck, and that is make Soldier Dudes. Yes, delicious 1/1 blocking Soldier Dudes to protect your Planeswalkers from any kind of damage you need. Oh, man. I mean, this is one of my favorite plays, and I do this frequently when I'm playing blue-white control in Standard, and it's weird how similar these decks kind of just run together. It's the Absorbs, it's the Counter Magic, it's the Castle Ardenvale, making blockers, and it's just incredibly powerful Planeswalkers. And Teferi has hit 7, he's close to ultimate. Gideon going up again, putting a little damage shield around that Murderous Rider and preventing him from dealing damage. And now, I mean, Danny can just kind of hang back and chill here. He doesn't really have to do a lot. But it looks like he's going to cycle that Azorius Charm anyways, getting maximum value off of his mana. Unfortunately, it looks like he traded his Azorius Charm for a land. And a Fatal Push is going to knock that 1/1 Soldier token out of the way. Looks like Rob didn't really have much else to do with it. But here comes Traverse the Ulvenwold. And that can be scary. So Danny is counting up Delirium. But he's also counting how much mana Rob has. He says, nope. Here's Absorb. And Rob Pisano says, nope, that works for me too. And game 1 is going to go to Danny running blue-white control. And now we're going to see what kind of sideboard tech Rob has in store for Danny as we go on to game 2. All right, here we go. Rob Pisano is going to be on the play in game 2. Danny leads 1-0. And I think for Rob, he really needs a better aggressive start. He needs a lot more disruption. Thoughtseize, Thought Erasure are key critical cards against Danny's blue-white control deck. Now, it looks like both players are going to be happy with their openers. Well, happy enough to keep. Maybe not thrilled, but happy enough to keep. Danny says he's okay too. And it looks like Rob is ready to start. Now, Blooming Marsh into a Thoughtseize. This is going to hurt Danny a little bit, but most of his hand is just lands. Danny's got a grip of lands. This has got to be what Rob is looking for. 6 lands, and looks like 1 is a cycle land, so maybe a different card on top. But Danny has drawn a replacement Absorb, and it looks like he's going to start off with the Hollow Fountain tapped. Not that he has much else to do. And Rob is going to drop a Satyr Wayfinder, taking 2 life to play that Overgrown Tomb untapped, but he's got to capitalize on Danny's weak spot now that he's seen it. And a few cards going to the graveyard. It looks like all lands. And he's going to take the Blooming Marsh. Looks over the Fabled Passages. I think I'm fine with that. Danny draws for turn. Here's a Glacial Fortress. Danny has drawn pretty well considering that he got hit with a turn 1 Thoughtseize. Now he's looking at a Censor. And Thoughtseize again. Rob's going to take 2 life, but it looks like he's going to nab the Censor out of Danny's hand, leaving him with Absorb. But it looks like Rob really wants whatever he's going to get for this turn 3 play. He doesn't want to be disrupted. What has he got? It's a Jace Vryn's Prodigy. And cracking that Absorb seems to be the right, or that Censor seems to be the right thing, because it would have went right into a Censor. But Danny has found a Teferi, and somehow just drawing out of this terrible, terrible hand he started with. And Teferi is going to really put a damper on things, bouncing that Jace back to hand and drawing another card. And Rob crashes in at Teferi, and, Teferi's a nice little target. It's not going to... unfortunately, Satyr Wayfinder isn't dealing that much damage, and I'm pretty sure Danny would have been happier to lose to keep the Teferi and take the 1 life. But Rob has Tireless Tracker, and Tracker is one hecker of a carder, because it's going to get Rob a lot of card advantage just playing off those clue tokens. And it looks like Danny's got that Soul Guide Lantern one more time. And he's going to exile that Thoughtseize, preventing Rob from casting it again. And he can actually just really put a damper on Rob's plans by preventing that Jace from flipping. Rob plays his land for turn, getting another clue token, but Rob might just be happy to keep the aggression going with the Tireless Tracker. Tireless Tracker popping a clue token, getting a +1/+1 counter, and he's going to deal 5 damage to Danny. If he doesn't want to pop another clue token, he might be considering it. Nope, he's going to hit it down. Danny goes down to 14, and he's holding on to Absorb, so Rob doesn't really have to play much into it. He could just happily let Danny die from Tireless Tracker. But Danny has a Settle the Wreckage in hand, which could put a big damper on that plan. And it looks like he's considering on whether or not he wants to start exiling things. And a turn, Rob is going to pop a clue token, draw a card, put another counter on that Tireless Tracker. And this is a great spot for Rob because he is out-carded. Man, Fabled Passage making 2 clue tokens off that Tireless Tracker. Wow. When you're out-card advantaging the blue-white deck, that's a problem. That's a big problem for Danny. And, honestly, I honestly didn't know that they had changed card advantage on the color pie from blue to green. I had no idea that was happening. So he swings in, pops another clue token before damage, draws a card. It's a Thoughtseize. Danny's like, alright, here comes Settle the Wreckage. I don't think he's going to pop a second clue token, and he doesn't want to take that much damage. So Rob, a little unhappy to get rid of that Tireless Tracker, but he's going to get 2 lands, and he's drawn a ton of cards off that 1 card alone. And he's got a Thoughtseize prepped in hand as well as a grip of cards. So now Jace can come down and prevent Danny from doing anything else he likes to do. Because, here's Jace, Vryn's Prodigy. And is he going to fire off that Thoughtseize? No, he's going to fire off Satyr Wayfinder first, which I'm fine with. Because if you want to protect something, I don't think he has anything he's really looking to cast that requires that much mana. So end of turn, Danny is going to exile all of his opponent's graveyards and move to his draw step, meaning that Jace has a lot of turns to get to before he can actually flip over. And what do we got? There's a Hallowed Fountain tapped, and he might want to... I don't find any reason to fire off that Supreme Verdict just yet. He might want to get a bit more value off the creatures from Rob's side of the field. It looks like Rob's drawn an Uro. And now is the time for Thoughtseize. And I guess what Danny has in hand isn't really worth protecting. He could use that Hieroglyphics or the Azorius Charm or the Absorb. And it looks like Rob really doesn't want Danny to draw out of this mess he's got himself into. So Absorb and Supreme Verdict are going to be the cards left in his hand as Rob holds a grip of everything. So here comes Uro. And it's going to draw Rob a card, gain him 3 life, putting him up to 15, and allow him to play another land. And he can start looting. That's going to be 3 cards in his graveyard if he loots. And, wow. Danny isn't under a ton of pressure here because that Satyr Wayfinder is only dealing 1 damage. And it's going to be another turn or 2 before Rob can get that Uro onto the field. So Jace loots, discarding a card. And that's 3 cards in his graveyard of 3 different land types, meaning that Traverse the Ulvenwald isn't yet live. But, with another Jace activation, he might be able to get the 4th one. So there's a clue token getting popped, and Rob passes the turn back to Danny. And Danny wondering if he wants to use that Gaia Reach Sanitarium. Ooh, there's Narset. Now, Narset's going to be a little bit of a problem here. That means that Jace isn't going to be able to really flip properly, because Jace will have to discard a card. He won't be able to draw a card. So here comes Narset, with Danny holding open Absorb mana. And that little Satyr Wayfinder is only going to be able to ping for 1 damage a turn. But it'll turn off a lot of stuff that Rob likes to do, and that's draw and discard and get all sorts of value off of his cards. But a Mystical Dispute is going to be the name of the game here. And Danny's just not going to pay the mana for it? Said he's going to use Absorb. So, a little bit of a new one to me. I never counted the mana leak with a Absorb, because I'll just pay the 3. But Narset finds a Teferi, which can be one of the more critical spells that he's looking for. However, Danny just might have gained some life off of that. So Rob draws to return. Narset is going to be really tricky. But Rob is using Traverse the Ilvenwald, and it looks like he's got Delirium. Instant creature, sorcery, land. Is he? Yeah, here's Traverse the Ilvenwald. He's got a lot of mana. There's Emrakul, the promised end. And like her namesake, she promises to end this game. It's really rare that you're able to cast this card and lose. The opponent's got to have an overwhelming board position for this card to cause a loss on your end, or you just make some really bad play mistakes. So Satyr Wayfinder crashes in for 1 at Narset. She goes down to 2. Jace is going to discard a card, but I think he's fine with that. Rob's fine with that. Yeah, okay, sure, I'll discard a card. It's going to allow him to flip, though. And it might just be the mana he was looking for. So Jace flips, and 5, 6, 7, land for turn, brings Rob down to 11. Thoughtseize, do you have any kind of force of negation, force of will? Here's Emrakul the Aeon's Torn. Danny scoops it up, and game 2 is going to go to Rob Pisano. And wow, Emrakul the Aeon's Torn being one of the critical spells in the Sultai Delirium deck that just helps make all that drawing and discarding and creature going to the graveyard worth it. And we're going to see if Danny can come back for game 3. And here we go. It's game 3. Both players tied 1-1. Danny's going to be on the play, which might just be one of the more critical aspects for this matchup. Not getting hit by a turn 1 Thoughtseize is really, really good. But turn 1 Thoughtseize on your opponent's turn isn't too great either. So it looks like Rob doesn't have the turn 1 Thoughtseize. Danny is clear for another turn. He's got a Teferi Time Raveler in hand. And he looks like he's got a Censor as well. So if Rob wants to drop like a Jace, he might find himself in a little bit of a pickle. So Danny's going to cycle an Azorius Charm, drawing a card, and finding him Big Papa Teferi, and then an Absorb off the top. Unfortunately, he doesn't have Absorb mana. He's got Field of Ruin, and he can use that to find Absorb mana by getting another island. But Rob looks like he's got a turn 3 play, and that is Uro. Casting it, but it looks like it's going to meet a Censor. Because Danny doesn't want Rob to not only draw a card, but ramp as well. Here we go. Can you find Censor? Uro hits the graveyard without doing anything. And there we go. Danny has found the island he needs. And this is going to put him on Absorb mana. But more importantly, he'll be able to cast Teferi and Big Papa Teferi and have a little bit of defense. But Danny is wondering if he should be afraid of Rob on turn 4. And he says, no, I'm going to cast Narset. And Narset could be something really bad that Rob doesn't want to see because of all the card draw that he has in his library. I mean, those clue tokens would have been really nasty if they had met Narset. So Rob plays out Courser of Kruphix, finds a land off the top, takes 2 life, gains 1 life, goes to 18, and he's casting Thoughtseize. And there are a ton of juicy targets for him. There's a Gideon, there's Absorb, there's Teferi Time Raveler, and Teferi, Papa Teferi, and Gyre Reach Sanitarium, which combos incredibly well with Narset. So Rob has to choose the card that he thinks is not going to be as effective. And I think Gideon of the Trials, preventing Courser from dealing damage, might be the one. But he's going to go with Teferi Time Raveler instead. And Teferi Time... There's Emrakul off the top. A little early, which kind of makes it a dead draw. But that means that Rob might have a land underneath. Narset doing her thing. And she's going to find A Rest in Peace. It looks like that's the card he's picking. And Rest in Peace really neuters that draw Rob is going to get with Emrakul. He's going to have to get to 15 mana on his own. And Danny is going to have, it looks like, no, Danny will not have Absorb mana. But he's got Gideon mana. But he doesn't have Gideon and Rest in Peace mana. These two colorless lands really neutering Danny from being able to make all these double plays that he wants to make. But the question is, what is the most important play here? And I'm kind of concerned that Rob didn't take Papa Teferi because he might have an answer for it. But at the same time, he's not going to draw with it. He's going to tuck the Courser with it. This is going to protect the Teferi, and it's also going to protect Narset. But it's also going to leave Danny to where he could get blown out by having his Teferi removed in some way. But it doesn't look like he's afraid of Emrakul because, well, yep, there comes the Murderous Rider killing off Teferi, and Rob's going to take 2 life in that exchange. But Danny's not going to be dealing with a Corsair Crucifix for another turn. And it might be a few turns if Rob cracks that Fabled Passage. Danny untaps. Oh man, there's the blue mana, and it might have been really useful in the previous turn. So here comes white and 1. Rest in Peace coming down. This is going to prevent Rob from casting that Emrakul and making it just a dead card in his hand unless the game goes long enough to where Rob can amass 13 mana. But on top of that, Danny's got options with that Gaia Reach Sanitarium, meaning that Rob will just have to start discarding cards every turn. And I think one of the first cards he'll discard is that Emrakul. But Rob has found a Thoughtseize, and he's going to crack that down pretty quick. Danny says, okay, I'll at least draw a card with the Irrigated Strand, or I'll have protection with Gideon. And Rob is going to nuke that plan, and he's going to drop the Murderous Rider. And Danny lets it go. He says, yeah, resolve. I'm not too worried about that. So I'm going to draw and discard, and you're just going to discard a card. And Rob is going to pitch away that land, and Danny's going to do the same, opting to keep the opt, putting the Rest in Peace on the bottom, and he's found a Dovin's Veto. I like that card. It's a nice little spell, especially when he's facing down cards like Mystical Dispute. But Rob's only got 2 cards in hand to work with, whereas Danny is going to be able to start filtering out his draws. Question is that Yep, he's gonna pass the turn. Now, he could make... No, he can't make a dude. He doesn't have the double white. So Danny says, in response to going to attacks, we're gonna crack this Gaia Reach Sanitarium. I'm gonna draw and discard, and you're just gonna discard a card. And it looks like that Emrakul is finally going away. Danny drawing and discarding a land. And now Rob is stuck with 2 cards in hand, and neither of them are particularly what he wants to be doing with his turns. The land and looks like something else, but it looks like that something else is a target for those counter spells. And Danny's going to be able to start making dudes every turn to kind of just get in the way of that Murderous Rider. Danny finally takes some damage, going down to 18. Rob going up to 16. And looks like he's got a Corsair Crucifix. There's 3 mana. Does Corsair get played? Oh no, he didn't discard the Emrakul. He's still waiting for it. And Uro comes down. Danny says, yeah, that's fine. Rob's going to gain 3 life, but that Uro is going to hit the Eterna bin. And he really needs some way to interact with that rest in peace. Maybe, hopefully, some sort of, maybe abrupt decay. But he's going to have to use Traverse the Ulvenwald, hoping to dig out something. Maybe a creature that'll just put pressure on Danny. No, he can't get a creature. His graveyard's empty. He can only get a land. So here's a forest. Maybe? Yeah, okay. He needs to drop a creature. And unfortunately, Danny is sitting there with plenty of ammunition, an Absorb, and a Dovin's Veto. So if he can get another Planeswalker down, he might just be in good enough of a position to really take over this game. Because he's not under a lot of pressure. Rob needs to draw 6 more turns worth of mana. And end of turn, Danny is going to make a soldier token. And this is the only problem with playing matching color sleeves. You don't know whose deck is who sometimes. Ooh, Danny has found another Narset. And this is really not good for Rob. Because Rob is going to have to play with increasingly fewer cards in hand. And Danny, you know what? He'll grab a Settle the Wreckage. Yeah, sure. I'll just grab that in case you decide you want to drop another creature and try and get in the way of all my human soldiers. So Rob draws for turn. And looks like here comes a Thoughtseize. Danny reveals his hand. Do you want to grab a counterspell? It looks like he's going to grab that Absorb. Rob goes down to 17. And a human token gets in the way of that Narset. It looks like Rob is testing the waters with a Courser of Kruphix here. There's another land. He is getting just a little bit closer every time to that Emrakul. And there's a really... Ooh. That's going to be difficult. He's going to have to discard that Emrakul. And... oh, wow. Danny is going to be able to lock down Rob's draws on his draw step every time and prevent him from playing another spell this game. Oh, wow. This is going to be really tough for Rob here. He's going to have to play basically with whatever he's got in hand, or in play. So on the draw step, here comes Gaia Reach Sanitarium, and that is going to make Rob draw and discard, and Danny doing a little bit of looting on himself as well. Rob reveals a land, and if both go at Narset, yep, here comes a cast out. That's going to prevent him from dealing damage to that Narset. And Danny also has a Settle the Wreckage. And here's... wow. Oh, here's Teferi. Teferi can bounce... he can bounce that Courser and make Rob try and play it again with a little bit of draw and discard. But he's going to pass the turn. And it looks like Rob is out of basic lands in his library. Maybe he's just going for a shuffle. No, he's got one left. It's going to gain him a life. But I think he's locked down. Because, yep, there's the... oh, right, yeah, I don't want to shake hands because of the coronavirus. They both intended to be good sportsmen. None of them are being mean to each other. It's just coronavirus. Nobody's salty here. It's coronavirus, guys. But that's going to be it for game 1, or match 1 of this Pioneer 1K event. And we're going to be going on to the next round here soon. But, oh my god, this was such a great game. I got to see Narset with the Gaia Reach Sanitarium lock, and that was a lot of fun for me. And probably for Danny, Not as much fun for Rob, but, sometimes that's just how it happens. But that's going to be it for us this time on Phat Pack Magic. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, tap that notification bell so you're up to the know whenever I put out my newest videos, and leave a like, not just for me, but for my players too. And if you like this content and you want to support us, check us out on Patreon where we do awesome giveaways, really cool stuff, and exclusive one-of-a-kind playmats. As always guys, thank you so much for watching, and may all your packs be fat.